Good morning, YouTube. This is Los Angeles Prepper here with just kind of a short good morning. I'm just going to talk about a few simple things real quick. Shout out to new subscriber Sean. Thank you for telling me about your friend that's going to get my survival kit version 2. The one of sort of multiple offers in my free viewer appreciation giveaway. So I'm going to head to the post office and get that in the mail today. And I might have to throw another Ziploc bag in there because this trying to get all this stuff in this little bag was a little bit of a challenge. So thanks for that. Another quick thing I'm going to talk about real quick. I was doing some research on knife laws in California, and so I've excuse me, some allergies or something. So I was doing some research on knife laws in California. I've started carrying this little guy around with me, at least when I can, in public and such. Just this is a real cheap Walmart $2 special. Excuse me. I need to get a nicer knife. I'm not, I don't love folding knives as much as I like fixed blade knives. They definitely have a purpose. But the reason I'm talking about knives is because, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on what your personal defense weapons are that you carry. I don't have a concealed license. I don't own a handgun right now, so that's not an option for me. My state, as far as concealed licenses, concealed carry licenses, my state is a may issue, not a must issue. There has to be good cause. And actually, that good cause clause was challenged recently. I want to say Peralta versus San Diego, and I think he appealed, and the court said he was trying to fight for the fact that you shouldn't have to show good cause. It should be a will issue, not a may issue. So I think he lost that, and he tried to appeal it, but then the appeal got shut down. So that's sort of either like working out attorney's fees or something. Feel free to look that up. So my state is a may issue state. So typically, and what's really interesting is that the police departments or the sheriff can issue a concealed carry, but a lot of the local police departments sort of want to like wash their hands of issuing the licenses, saying we don't have staffing, or we're busy, or or for whatever reason. So they kind of unvolunteer themselves for that duty and push it off to the sheriff. So ultimately, it can come down to what the sheriff, how the sheriff feels about concealed carry. It comes down to the individual, but if the sheriff is more pro concealed carry, maybe you have a better chance. If the sheriff is less supportive of citizens getting concealed carry, it might be a little bit harder. So that's why I've been looking up knife laws. In the state of California, you can open carry a knife of essentially any length. Now, of course, there are other laws about, brandishing weapons in different schools. Basically there's laws about you can't carry knives into school. So California has an open carry law. The city of Los Angeles has the opposite law. So in the city of Los Angeles, you can't openly carry a knife, but you can concealed carry a knife. I don't know about the specifics of like on your person versus in your backpack, but in the city of Los Angeles, if I ride around with this belt clip showing, or I ride around with this fixed blade on my belt, I am breaking a city, I want to say, or I don't know if it's an ordinance or a penal code. It's a city code, 1962. Yeah, so anyways, I'm not going to go through looking up the code here, but that's kind of an interesting thing. So, you know, California is a funny state, and funny not really the correct word, but it's a nice word that I'm going to choose to use. California is a funny state. So, would I ever buy a property in the city of Los Angeles? Hell no. I'm not going to buy property in a city where the city has decided to make a law completely opposite to the state of California. Um, because that means that if I'm open carrying, I'm breaking the city law, and if I'm concealed carrying, I'm having issues with the state law potentially. I don't know what the specific definition of concealed carry is, but I mean, I just thought I'd share that with you guys to see what you think about the fair city of Los Angeles. Fortunately, I'm not technically in the city of Los Angeles, so I can, when I'm walking around the block and stuff, I can openly carry a knife, and I don't typically carry this fixed blade on me. I certainly could, but I just don't. So, at any rate, going to touch briefly on some stuff that's kind of been in the news. We have, of course, Hurricane Nate that has been causing some havoc on, part of our country. And you know, I'm not even going to touch that briefly on it, but I would think that Hurricane Nate is newsworthy. Um, Millions of people are affected. It's a natural disaster. There's a lot of stuff going on, you know. Seems like a pretty dodo statement that we should be talking about Hurricane Nate. But the day after, our VP left a football game, and this whole NFL thing became the front page of the news for like 24 hours. So it, it's just funny that we have millions upon millions of people being affected by a national disaster, and here one guy leaves a football game, VP or otherwise. He's just one guy and his family or whoever. And suddenly that's more important. So it just cracks me up. Now on the front page of Drudge, we have these fires going on in Napa, which, California, I was watching this really good documentary on Netflix called Fire Chasers, I think. And it's about this couple that have spent like a year, if not maybe more than a year, I think a few years, chasing fires, for lack of a better term. There's storm chasers, so they're like fire chasers, and they film all these fires, and they're getting really interesting documentary. In California, over the last few years, we've had a lot of drought, and fires have been a really, really big issue. Fire is something that, there's not a lot of things that worries Californians. We're kind of almost to a fault, sort of optimistic about the future, and this isn't going to bother. Even though, Californians also have a real stereotype for being blue and sensitive and safe space and all that stuff. At the same time, there are a lot of Californians that kind of put that shit aside and are just like dreamers, just always trying to do big, crazy things and live these big, amazing lives. I don't know if I qualify as one of those people, but I guess the point I'm making is that not a lot of things as far as natural disasters really concern Californians too much. Maybe that's naive, maybe that's stupid, but earthquake and fire are probably up there on the list because, especially with the big fire and earthquake, in San Francisco, it's a big state, historic thing in the state. Um, Southern California's had some big earthquakes. Northern California's had, the Loma Prieta, part of the bridge had issues. We've also, Southern California and Northern California have had a lot of fires, a lot, over the years. And especially in the last few years, the intensity of the fires, the size of the fires, it's all increased. So as far as, reasons that I would ever bug out, fire is definitely, up there on the list because that's something that can very easily overwhelm resources, especially if there's a lot of fires going on. California probably has mostly just because we're a big state and it's a large economy, and there's a lot of property protect. Um, we have a lot of fire resources here. So of any state in the country, we're we do all right as far as fighting fires, but um, fires are no joke. So not much more to say on that other than all those emergency hope all those emergency responders are able to keep themselves safe because I think less than a couple years ago we had a whole group of firefighters that were killed. Fire kind of came up around them and they got trapped, and just terrible, awful tragedy. Losing property is one thing, but losing the lives of firefighters is just the losing any life in a fire, but especially the first responders, the ones that are really sacrificing their lives. It's just such a sad thing. Um, Also, some local news commentary. Columbus Day is coming up, um, and people in LA are not happy with it. In fact, the city of Los Angeles has and I'm going to stop playing with this knife here because I'm stop playing with knives. The city is renamed Columbus Day Indigenous People Day. So there's that. Um, and look, I'm not going to comment on how I feel about the Western world taking over North America. People have fought and warred for land since eternity. I don't think that's ever going to change. Whether or not that's right or wrong, or killing to increase how much land you have, subjugating other people, being deceitful and dishonest, and this country did a lot of terrible things to the indigenous people. There's no reason to try to deny it. I think, and I think really the saddest part is that ultimately the separatist solution, where a lot of people don't realize this, but if you, as a Native American, kind of claim your nationality, or you claim sort of your affiliation with the tribe, you sort of separate yourself from the United States. The United States isn't really interested on giving you like dual citizenship, so to speak, and saying I'm a member of this tribe and I'm also a U.S. citizen. So you can be a U.S. citizen and kind of live life on tribal land, or you can live life in tribal land and then interact with society. But as far as I understand, um, they're kind of two different worlds, and living between the worlds is sort of challenging. So it's unfortunate that even though they have some rights as far as being able to do things that they want on their land, or casinos and things like that, that a lot of the Native Americans that sort of live more of that tribal life, it's really difficult. It's really difficult. I'm not going to say it would be automatically better if they all integrated into U.S. society, and there's certainly a lot of reasons that they might not want to, historical, traditional, and even their own personal feelings about the U.S. government. But tribal living, living on Native American land, for a lot of reasons, it's really difficult. So that's kind of, I think, the most unfortunate thing, even more so than the history of everything, is sort of how it's still difficult for them to live how it is right now. Hepatitis A in California. Yeah, this is kind of a scary thing. So I think there's a few different reasons why the experts think that this has been an issue. Um, Originally, it was in San Diego, and I guess there was some crackdown in the downtown on the homeless population because of like some professional sports activity that was coming, like baseball or something, to the area. So that might have put some heat on the homeless people to go up to Los Angeles, and now there's a break. Kind of the outbreak is spreading to Los Angeles, and there's also comments about plastic bags being banned and how homeless people use plastic bags to kind of keep their waste, um, dispose of their waste in more sanitary ways. Since using a public restroom is something that's, there's just not a lot of public restrooms, other than like, library or the beach or maybe a park or something. And a lot of times it's not the safest or most sanitary place. They don't have doors in the stalls. So, anyways, this hepatitis, which is can affect different parts of your body. I'm not a health expert, but it can be a pretty nasty bug. You know, this is something that is a problem before shit hits the fan and after shit hits the fan. Things like sanitation, washing your hands, disposing of waste, trash. Um, it's going to be worse. It's going to be a lot worse. So things like having gloves, having multiple pairs of shoes, having appropriate personal protection, whether it's glasses or face masks. You don't want to catch hepatitis because you're giving first aid to someone. And you don't want to not be able to give first aid because you're worried about stuff like that. So that's kind of, an example, at least in my case, going on in California, but definitely communicable diseases are going to be, a big concern and shit hits the fan. So, yeah, so there's that. What else is going on in the world? Man, Catalonia is getting crazy. I've talked about that. Venezuela is still really facing difficulty. Of course, North Korea is doing exciting stuff. They want to launch a missile here, launch a missile there. I can't really. There's no point in me really saying much about North Korea. I definitely understand why they want nuclear power. They don't want to be pushed around. America has a tendency to kind of strong arm other countries. Um, that's I would not. I don't get a lot very political in a lot of my videos, but I will say that being the global bully is probably not the best way to make friends. Now, you know, foreign policy is a complicated thing, um, but I think we kind of do a few things wrong. I don't think we need to be giving money to a lot of these countries. I'm not saying that we don't need to help them or support them or show them the light, but I'd rather we spent more energy teaching countries how to fish than giving them fish. We're just throwing cash at countries, billions and billions of dollars at these other countries, and who knows where that cash is going. If we want to send groups over there and get some cross collaboration going and teach them how to live more sanitary ways and grow their own food and be entrepreneurial and all the things that make a country great, empowering the people, helping them learn how to take better care of themselves and help take care of their neighbors, fantastic. But I don't think we need to be throwing cash at these countries. Even if they're using it for a lot of good stuff, besides the fact that we have people at home that are struggling. I mean, there's 115 homeless people in California, 115,000 homeless people in California. Um, so I'd love to see Americans. I'm not a big socialist, but I do think we should spend at least a small percentage of our income, um, and I'm willing to contribute a small percentage of my income to trying to spend some money on an ounce of prevention. I talk about that, and I can't remember what other of my videos, but spending a little money on an ounce of prevention, so we're not bitching about how much a pound of cure costs. Because cure, like this hepatitis thing, um, more public toilets. Even things like if we just gave out soap, you know, to homeless persons or had sanitation, more sanitation to wash clothes and to take showers and things like free needles, whether or not you think giving away free heroin, needles for to do stuff like heroin, if you think that's going to make people do more heroin, that's one thing. But having clean needles, when you have a clean needle, you don't want to share a needle as much. And if you don't share needles, you're not going to spread hepatitis as much. And if you're living on the street, you might not be going to a doctor as much, so you might not even know that you have hepatitis. If two people are healthy and they share a needle, no big deal. But a lot of times people don't know if they're healthy or if they have a virus or an STD that they could spread to another person. So, you know, we're not spending money on things that are costing us a lot of money. So we have to even if you're not on the moral ground of wanting to help people, and I think preppers are a little bit different, at least in some ways in that aspect. Take a capitalistic approach. I mean, that's always my go-to argument when I'm trying to convince people to do something. Like if I'm talking about basic income or universal basic income, and people say, well, how are we going to afford that? My first argument is, let's just wrap up all the public welfare into one payment, reduce all that bureaucracy, reduce all those, all that delay, all that waste, and just start there. Start where the cost is equal or less to what we're doing, and you know just take a more capitalistic approach. So the hepatitis A thing is just kind of an example of it. Heroin and intravenous drug use is, God, it's such a scourge on this nation. And because it's vilified by most of society, we choose to spend the money on the cure rather than the prevention. So really, really tough issues going on in this country, from racial divide to people that are having difficulty taking care of themselves, to national disasters, to societies infatuation with this guy going to this NFL game, and this guy doing this thing, and this guy singing this on this show, and this guy saying this racist thing. And what are you going to focus your energy on? What are you going to do with all this crazy stuff going on? um, it's too much. It's too much if you're just caught in the news cycle. You have to kind of break free, and that's why I went on that hike yesterday evening. It was just a short hike, but I had to get away from it. I had to get away from technology. Had to get away from this box that I'm living in. So I'll kind of wrap up this video. It's kind of a little bit random and disorganized, but just want to do a quick check-in, make a few more videos this morning. Appreciate all your feedback, comments. Definitely gives me insight and thoughts into making more content for the future. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.